It's my great pleasure to introduce our guest speaker, Warren Barhorst. Warren is the founder and CEO of Iscential, a Texas-based risk management, insurance, and financial services firm. Warren is also the founding partner of Renova Partners, a business consulting firm. Warren started Iscential in 1993 with a single office in Jersey Village, Texas. He's grown the business to 20 locations across the state with 100 associates and $100 million in sales. Warren is the author of Game Plan, the definitive playbook for starting or growing your business. His second book, Game Plan, the definitive playbook for selling in the connection culture, was released in January of 2016. Warren, thank you so much for joining us today. Warren, you clearly have a successful game plan for agency growth. Would you share your model with our audience?
You know, it's interesting because the first question I normally ask insurance agents or small business owners when I'm working with them on their business is would you drive to New York without a map? And the answer always is, well, no. And you know, it's funny because most people use maps to get to a restaurant at night, or they use it in almost every part of their life, but and they spend a lot more time planning their thoughts for dinner or where they're going to go on their next vacation than they do thinking about their retirement. And there's a rule that I wrote about in my first book called the 5% rule. And the reality is that 5% of the U.S. population writes down their dreams and goals. 5% of businesses actually have a business plan, and only about 5% of the population retires financially independent. And I'm not talking about wealthy or exorbitance. I'm talking about just living financially independent, being able to live without the support of your friends and family. You know, I also always like to share with people how I kind of got in the business. And you know, I have a degree in engineering from Texas A&M, and I went to work for a very large manufacturer and was worked my way up there in an engineering sales type capacity. And when I decided to open my insurance agency, I went to my boss, who was one of my mentors and still is a great friend of mine today, and I said, Al, I'm going to resign. I'll work as long as you need me to get my stuff cleaned up, but I'm going to start my own business. And he said, that's great, Warren. I think you'll do very, very well. What are you going to do? And I said, well, I'm going to open an insurance office. And he started laughing, and he used a four-letter word and told me that I was crazy. And I said, you know, Al, the funny part about it is that I know there's an insurance agent on every corner, but the reality is none of them are any good. And I only have to suck a little less than them to be disruptive in the marketplace. And doing that has really, really helped us be successful. And I remember starting like it was yesterday because the guy that gave me my first agency appointment, his name was Larry Bisson, and Larry pulled up in a Toyota Previa. I don't know if you remember what these look like, but it's the ugliest van from the 1990s. It looked like a bug, not like a beetle bug, but a long cicada bug or something, really, really nasty looking car. But he backed it up to the front of our office. He opened the front door. He threw 5 file boxes in and said, go get him, Tiger. I had never set up an insurance file. I had never sold an insurance policy. I'd been to a couple weeks training at the insurance carrier to learn their products and services, and we were off. And you know, it took us a long time to figure out how to do all those things, but once we figured it out, we became very, very successful. You know, our process today, if you look at it, has developed and evolved to something that I'm very, very proud of. And Iscential itself is our retail risk management insurance and financial services organization. Iscential University is our continuous learning platform. Iscential Management Consulting is our business consulting unit, and Iscential 360 is our the speaking engagements and things that I do. The cool thing about it is Iscential itself is really where we perfect our skills, implement them on a daily basis. Iscential University is where we develop our skills. The consulting business is a great place to learn. We do a lot of work at the university level, at the carrier level, and with agencies and small business owners. And then I love doing stuff like this on the 360 because I can go out and share the information and hopefully get some feedback from people to enhance our process and make our agency a better place. You know, when you think about our world today, there's a lot of negative stuff going on out there that an agent's facing. If you, you just look at it, the industry spends $6 billion a year trying to convince us that insurance is a commodity. There's all this talk about driverless cars. There's all this talk that people will buy insurance on the internet and there's no need for a middleman. And then the last thing that I laugh at and I encourage young people about is that everyone tells me that the insurance industry is going to die in 2021 because the average insurance agent is 59 years old and they'll all be dead or retired by that time frame. So, I think looking at that, you have to realize that the world's been burning since it's been turning, and Billy Joel probably said it best when he wrote that song about that. And I would challenge everyone to go ask their grandpa or their grandpa's grandpa if he was still alive. If he were an insurance agent, I'm sure he had some very significant challenges in his business at that time. And I think that that's all just noise, and you have to ignore it and move forward. If you want to look at sustainability, to be sustainable in our business, I believe you have to build yourself a Parthenon. And I think your Parthenon needs to be built on these 6 pillars of success with a foundation of having a quality culture in your agency. You have to have a quality agency, which means that you have to have some integrity and relationship with your carriers, that you write good business and you do the right thing for your customers. You have to leverage technology. You have to have great sales efficiency. You have to have truly multifaceted marketing. You have to have service that's second to no one's. You have to really develop your people through human capital, and you've got to work on your infrastructure. And if you do all that to drive your customer experience, I truly believe that you'll have a sustainable organization. The first thing that I think you've got to do is you have to change your business model. And most people in business today have a traditional business model, and they've got a model that's focused on the company's agenda, not the customer's agenda. They have a mission and vision for the sake of having one. It truly is a formula for mediocrity, and it really, really does aim too low. And as you look at that, I believe you have to switch to what we call a noble business model. And, in a noble business model, your purpose is to make a difference in the lives of other people. Your mission is how you do it. Your promise is what you say you're going to do. And your performance has got to equal your promise. And your vision is how you see the world after you've completed your purpose, mission, and promise. If you look at Iscential's business model, our purpose is to provide the economic means to preserve and expand lifestyles. Our mission is to grow and protect assets by providing comprehensive advice with timely, precise execution. Our promise is to provide trusted advice that leads to peace of mind, and our performance is taking care of our clients and making a difference in their lives. Our vision is where we see a world where all of our clients' claims are covered, their income is protected, and they have the ability to retire financially independent, leading the life of their dreams. It's really important that you must move from this traditional business model to a noble business model. And I can give you some examples of where it's really difficult to do that. If you take Southwest Airlines, for example, Southwest's noble business purpose is to democratize the skies. And, they see a world where everyone can fly. I mean, if you live by that culture or that mantra, you can change a business and make it a great place. And as insurance agents, we really can have that impact on people. And I think you have to move from what I call demand response or order taking to demand creation. And this is not a simple process for people in our industry because we've been so used to finding value in responding to consumers' demand. But I truly do believe that the computer will respond to demand in a very short period of time. A lot of people call me a doomsdayer or whatever, but I believe that unemployment could go to as high as 25% because a lot of the work we do in any industry is demand response, and I think the computer is gonna start doing that work. So it always reminds me of a story that people should learn, and I wrote about it in the first game plan, and it's a guy named Joe Lugnut. and I don't want to offend anybody based on what their father did or their husband or spouse does, but Joe Lugnut went to work for General Motors back in the 1970s, and he was putting, lug nuts on cars and putting the wheel on the car and tightening the bolts up, and they gave him a lug wrench to do it. And a few years later, they came out and gave him an impact gun, the thing that goes, and he tightened the wheels up with that. Then a few years later, they gave him a multi-spindle impact gun where he actually has five impacts, and he tightened all 5 of the bolts up at one time. Today, he sits on a stool and he watches a robot install the wheels on the car, and he makes sure it does it correctly. The question you have to ask is, his salary has gone from $10 an hour to $70,000 a year, but does he bring any more value? Does he create any demand for General Motors? And the answer would be no. And I think that's the jeopardy that a lot of us could find ourselves in if we don't make this switch from response to demand creation. I really believe if you're going to play your game, you're going to have to move from demand response or order taking to demand creation. I truly believe that the computer will respond to demand in a very, very short time. If you haven't heard of Watson, it's IBM's newest technology. A lot of phone systems you call, it actually sounds like a human, acts like a human, and interacts with you like a human. It's very, very scary. When you think about it, but actually it's very, very cool also, because it's really going to move things forward from a demand response perspective. You also have to study distribution in itself, and if you look at what Amazon has done to distribution, it's very, very interesting, because Amazon is a lot of manufacturers and distributors' largest competitor, and it's also their largest customer. So that's a very, very unique environment, and we're seeing that in the insurance industry also, where some carriers partner with another company to provide products and services, and they also compete against that same carrier in the marketplace. And the best example I can give you about this phenomenon is probably with the Maytag repairman. You might remember the commercials when you were a kid. The Maytag man always kind of sat there waiting for the phone call to come in because his washing machine, Maytag supposedly didn't break or whatever. And the funny story about it is, a few weeks ago, my wife told me that our washing machine was broken. So I went back there and I looked at it, and sure enough, the hinge on the door lid had broken. So I went on to the Google and asked it, hey, Maytag repair washing machine hinge. Up pops thousands of different responses, videos on how to fix it. 2 days later, and $2.98 from Amazon Prime, it was sitting on my front porch. 5 minutes with a screwdriver, it was fixed. So my fear is not only is the Maytag man not going to get, he's going to get few phone calls. The calls he did get was because he was the access to the parts and service. Today, I think you're going to be able to get those parts and service from somewhere else at a much faster pace. We also know that carriers will pay more for demand creation. In your negotiations with a carrier as an agent, if you're an order taker, there's probably going to be pressure on your commissions as we move forward. If you're a demand creator, you're going to get more money from them in the marketplace. And I think the biggest thing to make this transition is you have to stop talking about what insurance is, and you have to start talking about what insurance does. To do this, to truly become a demand creator, I believe you have to go into a continually learning the business and act like the way you did when you first got in the industry. So many people come into our business, they're very excited and aggressive, and they learn a lot about the business, and then their learning just falls off after that time. You have to continue to sharpen your sword and learn more and more about it. I also believe you have to have a holistic approach to marketing, sales, and service. You have to remember that everything you do is marketing, every interaction, every transaction. Everything you do is sales, every interaction and every transaction. And you've got to put all those together and make sure they're pushing or pulling in the same direction. You've got to build and drive awareness of your value proposition, your products and your services. Most insurance agents have a very weak value proposition, and they need to develop that and decide what it is and sell that value proposition to the marketplace. You have to have a multifaceted marketing plan that leverages all of the things that are out there today: social media, direct mail, email marketing, centers of influence marketing, all the different things. You've got to put that together in one multifaceted effort. And probably the most important thing is you have to have proactive lead generation. And that lead generation has to be focused at your current clients and your prospective clients. So to really make this transition, I believe you have to understand the purpose, promise, performance conundrum. And what people don't understand is that the purpose is what a customer's actually looking for. Your promise is what you say you're going to do, and your performance is actually how you perform. And if your promise resonates with your purpose and your performance equals your promise, you're going to be in good shape, and customers will come to you. If you look at some examples in industry, let's take the airlines for example. Delta in my world, as I travel about 100,000 miles a year, it stands for doesn't ever leave Terminal A. Their motto is ready when you are, but the reality is that's not what they do. They'll leave you at the gate until the last minute before they tell you the flight's canceled. They could have told me earlier, so I could have gone back to my, maybe gotten a better hotel room, gotten a nice dinner, all those kind of things, but instead they leave you stranded at the airport, and it's a very, very poor customer experience. If you look at Southwest in that business, and people say, well, Southwest is this or that, the other. The funny part about it is that Southwest, they have the same unions for pilots, they have the same unions for baggage handlers, they have the same unions for flight attendants, they have the same mechanical breakdown, they have the same weather to deal with. But it's so much, people love Southwest. And I've already talked about their noble business purpose, but the reality is that, their motto is grab your bag, it's on. They promise exactly what their performance is. They don't say on time. They don't say fastest or friendliest or whatever. They say grab your bag, it's on. If you look at our business, Iscential, our motto is trusted advice that leads to peace of mind. And we're not perfect. We're like every other business, and I strive for perfection, but we don't always get there. But anytime we have a breakdown with a customer, I can go back to our associate and I can say, did you provide trusted advice? And they can look at themselves and say, I didn't. That's where it broke down. It broke down to that fundamental core promise of providing trusted advice. And because of that, our performance didn't equal our promise, and we failed, and we have an unhappy customer. So the secrets to this is you've got to make your message aligned and magnetic. So if you're going to say, I sell discount auto insurance, and that's your promise, you better make sure that's what you're doing, and then try to make that resonate with the customers who are looking for discount auto insurance. If you sell trusted advice that leads to peace of mind, you better make that message resonate with customers who are looking for trusted advice, and you've got to make that message stick once you get it there. The next thing you've got to do is you've got to come up with a way to fix your clients' hassles. There's a lot of pain in the marketplace. You've also got to develop your backstory, and I've interviewed thousands of insurance agents and business owners in my career, and you ask them what their value proposition is, and most of them will say, we provide great service. And I'm like, come on, man, there's got to be more to it than that. And most businesses have a great backstory. They have a great reason, but they just don't formulate it and show it to their customers. At Iscential, one of the things we tell our new prospects and our existing clients is that we have over 1,000 years of combined experience in our operation. We have relationships with mortgage bankers and realtors and CPAs and attorneys and professionals, underwriters and different people. And if you ask us a question that we can't answer, someone in our network will be able to get it, and you can count on us to answer your questions. The next thing that I think is critical is you have to find the customer's trigger. And people look at me when I tell them that, and they say, what do you mean? And the best example I can give you is a few months ago, I met a client and wrote his insurance, and took him to dinner, and we didn't meet, we ran into another insurance agent at the dinner that we both were friends with. And during the conversation, my new client happened to just tell the agent that he paid me $5,000 more a year for insurance than he was currently paying. And could you believe that he got me to do that? So my client walks off and goes to the bathroom, and the agent says, "Dude, how did you do that?" And I said, "It was simple. I just asked him, a series of questions and kind of figured out what his problem was." And the guy basically has 3 houses, multiple toys, a farm, a bunch of stuff, pays about $35,000 a year for his personal insurance, but it was all with different carriers and it all had different expiration dates. He was working on insurance every month. And I asked him, once I figured out that's what his trigger was, I just asked him, would you be willing to pay more if it was all on one date? The answer was, of course, because he would save so much more time. So you just have to dig through the process and find what their trigger is. Once you get this stuff going, you can really build a trajectory of improvement by looking at what you're doing and getting those things better and better and tweaking it. And then the last thing you have to do is you have to fully develop your customer. Good agents are 3 lines deep in a household or in a commercial account. I would tell you have to get 5, 6, 7, 8 lines deep in that customer. And you can look at other businesses. If you go out and look at Starbucks or you look at anything that you study, you'll see their strategy was first to attract the customer, then the next strategy is to fully develop that customer by gaining more wallet share, and we have to do that as insurance agents as well. This one's the whole reason the guys at Vertafore asked me to come out here is we have a pretty unique way of tracking pipeline management. And if you want to be a demand creator, you've got to be a pipeline manager. And I have the old saying in our operation, if you want to move it, you have to measure it, because you can't move it if you don't know what you're aiming for and trying to push it forward. But when I first started in the business, we had a sheet of paper with 100 numbers on it, and when we would prospect, we would put a C on the number if we had a contact. We would put an X on it if we got an X date. We would put an A on it if we got an appointment, and then we would track our premium that we quoted and our premium booked on spreadsheets, and we would build a slow report to get us those numbers. The critical thing with doing this is, as an agency, when I interview them, I'll ask them, well, where's your problem at? I don't know. We just aren't selling any insurance. Well, is it a prospecting problem? Is it a closing ratio issue? Is it a presentation issue? What's driving the problem? And because you're not measuring it, you have no way of knowing what it is. And if you look at our process today, you really have to leverage technology to do this. We're doing it in our agency management system. It's really Band-Aids and baling wire, how we've got it built. I'm super excited about what SalesTrack's going to do for the industry and how you can finally have a fully comprehensive approach that's attached to the agency management system that you can drip mail to, you can prospect, you can do all those things and track where you're having success or no success. So, the reality is, if you want to be sustainable, I really believe you have to leverage technology to do that. And for that matter, if you lose focus on any of the things, sales efficiency, marketing, servicing, human capital, or infrastructure, I truly believe that your agency will crumble.